Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Tag Tuesday. A Tag Tuesday triptych is what I was originally thinking about doing. I was originally thinking of doing 3 tags today, just like I did 3 tags last Tuesday. But I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to be able to do that. I might have to stick to just 2 tags and do a 3rd one tomorrow. I think that's still a triptych, isn't it? One way or another, I wanted to do this tag, the Are You Like Jane Austen tag, that I've seen going around on a few channels. I'll link to the ones that I've seen that I've really enjoyed. It's a terrific tag. It's an original by Shelly Swearingen, and I will leave a link to her channel. She, of course, shares a surname with the fan favorite character from the HBO series Deadwood, and you'll be able to sense that right away when you go to her channel because of the outpouring of obscenities. These are all prompts designed to figure out how close you are to Jane Austen. And prompt number 1 is Jane was an artist and a writer. Give yourself a point if you're an artist, and give yourself an extra point if you're a writer. I'm definitely going to claim that extra point because I write all the time. And not just, I scribble some things and keep them in a cabinet somewhere. I'm a writer by profession. That's what I do. It's the despised, lowly, hated cousin of all writing forms. It's criticism. It's book reviewing. Which nobody even wants to think of as a legitimate art form of writing on its own. It nevertheless is, and I do that all the time. And in addition to that, I do lots and lots of fiction writing. I never miss an iteration of NaNoWriMo, for instance, and am already deeply plotting what I'm going to be doing for the big show for NaNoWriMo in November. But unbeknownst to a lot of people who watch this channel, I'm also an artist. If by art, I've seen a lot of people beating themselves up unnecessarily when it comes to that, using that word in connection with themselves. If by art we mean it shows work, where it's not something you just did, that you just tried to do today. In other words, stick figures. If it's something that shows work, that shows that you have put time and effort into this, I know that flies directly in the face of the 21st century, where if you were to say to someone, well, in order to get better at thing X, Y, or Z, all you have to do is buckle down and work at things X, Y, or Z. Not only would the person that you said that to not do it, they would also sue you for being a bigot. But nevertheless, that is the only way that anything happens. So I would say that you're an artist if your art is better, noticeably better, than it was when you started. And I have been drawing for a chunk of time every night for decades and decades, for longer than most of you have been alive. I'm not good at all, but nevertheless, I am better than when I started. In terms of free art, without models, without needing something right in front of me. And as a token of that, for the purposes of this tag, I made a couple of sketches in pen. First, I did a self-portrait. This is an honored practice among artists to do a self-portrait. There you go. There's Hello, BookTube. I think you'll see that I've caught all the similarities. Pretty close self-portrait. But just to show you that I can also draw other people, I also did a sketch of Brian at Bookish. There you go. I think you'll be able to spot the resemblance right away. Yeah? So, an artist as well as a writer. So I'm going to give ourselves both points here. Then prompt number 2 is Austen was born to a large family. She had a total of 7 siblings, 1 sister and 6 brothers. Give yourself a point if you have 3 siblings or more in your family. I have 3 siblings, so I get another point. Let's see here. Prompt number 3. Austen did not enjoy her formal education. Give yourself a point if you did not care for school. Puh. Only 1 point? I should get a lot of points for this one. I hated school in every one of its forms. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. There's grammar school, where I was told, your dogs can't come in here, and they can't come onto the recess yard either. Your dogs have to be a separate from this experience completely. You're not going to go through these experiments with them. And then there's high school. Who wants to be cooped up with a bunch of teenagers with out-of-control hormones who don't have the first idea about anything? Who wants to do that? Also away from your dogs. And then undergraduate college. Oh my God. Where I found myself in a room with 30 other students, and we can only progress at the speed of the slowest person in the room. You got to make sure that Clem Cadiddlehopper, who's the first one of his sod-busting family to go to college at the big city, understands what you've just said about Byron or Sheats or Shelley or Keats before you can move on. This was especially bad in introductory history courses where I had read all the primary sources in the original languages, where I'd read all of the works, depending on them, all the latest historical studies, where I subscribed to historical journals, far more historical reading than the teacher had done. And not only do I have to crawl along with the teacher as they grope through their instruction handbook, but I also have to worry about Clem Knittlehocker in the back of the room who doesn't understand anything at all, who's never learned anything. Where the undergraduate college, at least a third of the people in most of the classes that I attended, the class at college was doing rudimentary high school work for those people. It was tooth-achingly horrible. And then there was graduate school, which was even worse, where the very worst students, not worst academically, but the worst people, where the worst people are strained out, and instead of being strained out of society, they're strained upwards in the academic program. So that you're in a graduate level program with absolute pretentious jerks, one after another, after another, after another, after another, who think it's cool not to bathe, who think it's cool to learn bon mots in a language you don't know, who think it's cool to kiss up to a professor who's hawking the latest literary or critical fad. I hated every part of the academic side of school. The social side, I increasingly loved. There wasn't any in grade school. The one that existed in high school was not very healthy. Undergrad was glorious, and even grad school, there was still access to undergraduates, so it was still glorious. The social side was glorious, but the academic side, I hated it all. I'm giving myself at least 1 point for this prompt. Let's see here. Prompt number 4. Dark humor is weaved... this should be woven throughout Austen's writing. Give yourself a point if you have a grim sense of humor. I don't know that I have a grim sense of humor, but like I think it was Mark at Book Time with Elvis said, I won't shy away from grim humor. I don't think my humor is naturally grim. I think it's more antic. I love to look at goofy, silly things. I love to find them in the world. But I won't, if dark humor is where events are taking me, I'll definitely go there. You must share a dark joke in order to get this point. Well, I'll just barely get the point because, as I mentioned in earlier videos, I'm not very good at canned humor. I think in a conversation you would probably come away thinking he's funny, but I don't really do jokes. I do know a dark humor joke, but as with all the jokes that I know, it's bad. It's a bad joke. It's not funny at all. I learned it a long time ago. Why did the monkey fall out of the tree? Because it was dead. I'm sorry. I'm still giving myself a point. Prompt number 5. Jane broke off 2 engagements and died a spinster. Lucky her. Give yourself a point if you are single. I am single. I'm giving myself a point. Number 6. Jane experienced low periods or spells of depression. Give yourself a point if you have struggled with mental health. I'm not going to be able to give myself a point here if I understand the terminology correctly, and I think I do. I think I understand how this is used in the 21st century. And it is used as in the sense, in a gesture towards an ongoing kind of struggle, whether it's low-key or major. Not a momentary bout of feeling terrible, but an ongoing struggle of some kind, so that now in 2021 it has become absolutely reflexive for people to say, yeah, mental health issues, yeah, mental health reasons, a mental health day, thought it was good for my mental health. The phrase now comes to everyone's mind, even in practice, especially the 95% of the adult population that does not have any mental health problems. They now say it infinitely. It comes, you hear it. I can't go a day in my subscription feed on BookTube without hearing an obviously normal person, a person who has never struggled, never had a genuine mental health issue in their life, say, oh yeah, I was going to do this, but I thought for mental health reasons I better not. All you're saying there, Cupcake, is that you didn't feel like it. That's all you're saying. That's all you have to say. There's no reason for you to drag in the term mental health. So if I'm understanding the implication of the term correctly, as an ongoing struggle of some kind, then no, I've never had any issues with mental health. I have had very low periods, but struggled? I've had very low periods where I had to live through it. I don't think just generationally I am equipped for this question, but so I'm not going to give myself a point. And I'd be willing to bet no shade here, but I'd be willing to bet in the 21st century that every single person other than me who does this tag gives himself at least 1 point for struggling with mental health. And I'd be willing to bet that of the people who do that, give themselves a point for struggling with mental health, a full 98% have never struggled with mental health. Which is a point that I've been making for years, long before that phrase, thanks to the Quitter Olympics, reached the common parlance. For years I've been saying, you are doing no good to the people, a very small number of people out there, who are actually struggling with actual serious mental health issues, to say that because you don't feel like doing something, you're giving yourself a mental health break. You're doing no good to those people. They have a plenty hard enough life as it is. Without you... let's just move on. Prompt number 7 is Jane moved away from her childhood home in her 20s. Give yourself a point if you've lived away from your childhood hometown or region. I have. Again, I should get many points for this. I've been a childhood region. First of all, there's no scholarly agreement on where that region was. Was it Nashua, New Hampshire? Was it northern Massachusetts? Was it Boston? Was it Keokuk, Iowa? Was it a small town in Turkey on the shores of the Black Sea? One way or another, the scholars aren't agreed, but one way or another, no matter where it is, I've spent a huge amount of time away from all of the candidates in all of the different scholarly schools. So I definitely get a point for not going home again. Then prompt number 8, Jane was not vain. We don't really know that. I might point that out. I mean, I love this tag for the fun of it, but it's making flat declarative sentences on subjects that we have only fragmentary source material to know. I'd be willing to bet that the adult Jane Austen was vain, but one way or another, Jane was not vain. Give yourself a point if you have very little interest in vanity. And again, I'm going to draw a distinction here. I'm pretty sure that Shelley would agree with me here. There's a distinction between vanity and presentability. I'm not vain. I am ugly, and I have been ugly for my whole life. I don't have any trouble with that at all, none whatsoever. I've never really cared. Dogs don't care what you look like, so I've never really cared. I was never trained early to care. And by the time humans in the aforementioned academic settings wanted me to care, it was too late. You're a product of your upbringing when it comes to things like that, and my upbringing was conducted largely by members of a much better species than humans. So I don't care about any such thing at all, and I can't be made to care. I can't be made to feel. I always say, when I say this in videos over the years, when I said, yeah, I'm not going to claim any points here because I'm ugly, people have always rushed in, first on comments and then in email, once I started putting my email on videos, saying, oh, you're not ugly. Oh, don't be so hard on yourself. I always want to say to people the same thing that I used to say before there was an internet. I always want to say to people, when I say that and you rush in being sympathetic, I love that you're being sympathetic, but when you say, oh, don't be so hard on yourself, oh, that's a terrible thing to say, I always want to respond, do I strike you as someone who's lacking in self-esteem? No, it's just not at all connected to my appearance. But there's a difference between that and presentability, right? I'm not vain. But I do check myself over before I go out in public. Maybe if I'm walking Frida at night, maybe not so much. Maybe if I'm puttering around in the backyard or something like that, maybe not so much. But if I'm going out to a newsroom where there are going to be a bunch of other people there, or if I'm going to a hospital for an appointment, or if I'm going somewhere, if I'm going out, even if it's on public transportation, I give myself a once-over. There's nothing I can do about the hair. There's nothing I can do about the face. There's nothing I can do about any of that. But do you have a clean shirt on? And is it right side in? Do you have clean pants on? Are you presentable to be out in public? And from what I can tell, being out in public, I'm pretty much the only one left in Boston who asked that question before he heads out the door. So I'm going to say that I don't care. I'm not vain at all. But I do care about that. I don't think that's vanity. I think that's just very basic. Let's see here. Number 9, hair was of little concern to Austen. Again, I'm not sure that we 100% know that. Give yourself a point if you cannot be bothered with your hair. I cannot be bothered with my hair at all. I get a point. For this and the last one, I get a point. I cannot be bothered about my hair at all. It's been this color since I was in my late 20s, and I've let it, every time that I think, for variety's sake, maybe you want to just let it grow long, every time I do that, it ends up being more annoying than anything else. I end up I end up cutting it back anyway. So I don't think about it at all except to keep it clean. And then prompt number 10, Austen expressed her distaste for hot weather. Boston is just about headed into, tomorrow starts a heat wave that is going to last for the better part of a week. Genuine heat wave, hot days. Give yourself a point if you dislike the heat. Once upon a time, for most of my life, childhood, young adulthood, for most of my life, my answer, I would have gotten a huge point for this. I would have been an emphatic, yes, I hate the heat. I used to dread it. I used to dread that it was coming. I used to hate every minute of it, every aspect of it. And I have noticed in the last couple of years, once your body stops heating you, then you love the heat. Just like a lizard. Body isn't heating the organism. The lizard is living on borrowed heat. It is absorbing heat from its environment. Same thing. Once your body stops heating yourself the way young people expect, then all of a sudden you can never be warm enough. And you're always cold. Always cold. So I can't give myself a point here. Once upon a time I could have. Once upon a time I would have been looking at the forecast for Boston for this week. 90 degrees Fahrenheit tomorrow. 100 degrees Fahrenheit on Thursday. 95 degrees on Friday, 95 degrees on Saturday, maybe a little relief on Sunday, but maybe not. Once upon a time I've been looking at that and thinking, please, can I just go to the hospital and get medicated under and just wake me up when it's over? Once upon a time I would have saying, there's no way I'm going to enjoy even any minute of this. It's going to be hell. Now I'm looking at those forecasts and thinking, oh my, bring it on. Bring it on. Oh my. I'm thinking that at the peak of the heat on Thursday, when it's 100 degrees in Boston, I will probably be comfortable. I won't get to be just carefree about it because that kind of heat is very dangerous for dogs, especially for my little Schnauzer is very sensitive to the heat. She doesn't like to admit it, but she is. So I'm going to have to watch. For those days will not be easy for having a dog at all because she loves exercise. And I love exercising with her. And we're not going to be able to do that on those days. We're just not. We'll be able to get in a walk in the morning of the first day. It looks to me like the morning of all subsequent days it'll still be too hot. So the walks will have to wait until nighttime. And Frida has terrible night vision. Terrible. One of the worst of any dogs I've ever had. She sees shadows. She doesn't trust her other senses. She gets jumpy and alarmed when we're out at night. I try to avoid it because she hates it. But we're going to have to do it for those days. But once upon a time, I would have been looking at those with misery for myself. Now I can't wait. So I'm not going to get a point for this one. And that means I think that my total is 9. If I'm counting correctly, my total is 9. And that means 9 is the... Shelly breaks down what your score tells you about how close you are to Jane Austen. And 9 is, in another life, Jane Austen and you could have been siblings or at least good friends. You want to spend time with one another and work to make that happen. I'm okay with that. I think, I'm not 100% sure that we know all of these things about Jane Austen, but I think I would have liked her. I think I can tell that just from her fiction. I think I would have liked her. I probably would have liked spending time with her. Not as much time as Jane Austen romanticizers like to say. Keep in mind this is a woman who never bathed. That's kind of a deal breaker right there. You know, this is a woman who never bathed, probably never brushed her teeth. So that's gross. You know, we think of Jane Austen as this beloved author, and we do love her. I love her. I love her writings. But chances are that if you were sitting in a parlor talking about Thackeray with her, you would have watched a louse crawling across her forehead, and she would not have been able to feel it quite so readily because she would have had 30 years of grime on her forehead. So I'm not theoretically anyway, I'm glad to know that we would have been friends. That is the Are You Like Jane Austen tag. If you haven't done this tag, you got to rack these points up and see for yourself, and you got to share the details with me. I will leave a link to a bunch of channels who've already done this because this is a lot of fun. I think a lot of more people should do it. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.